أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. This is a topic concerning knowledge of Deen, the importance of knowledge of Deen, the value of knowledge of Deen, and the rights of the knowledge of Deen upon a student and upon an alim. Regarding the value and importance, the author mentioned the story of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, when he came to learn there is someone who knows more than him, who is more knowledgeable than him. Musa alayhi salam became eager and interested and made a request to Allah Ta'ala that I want to meet that person. Allah Ta'ala also gave permission and showed him the way. And Musa alayhi salam went to Khizr alayhi salam and he showed some amazing incidents there. So nevertheless, this shows the value and importance of knowledge that such a great prophet, Musa alayhi salam, who used to speak with Allah Ta'ala directly, wahi of Allah Ta'ala used to come upon him. But even then, when he came to learn, someone is more knowledgeable than him, he made a request to Allah Ta'ala to see and meet that person. Allah gave him the permission. The example of knowledge for the heart is like the example of food for the body. That the food is necessary for our body to sustain and maintain our body, keep it in good condition. Exactly in the same way, the knowledge of Deen is the nourishment and food of the heart. If you don't eat for 3 days, you become weak and probably die. In the same way, if the heart does not achieve its nourishment in the form of knowledge of Deen, in form of remembrance of Allah Ta'ala, slowly dies away. So the death of the heart is the disconnection with Allah Ta'ala, disconnection from the Deen. And that occurs when a person's heart is away from its nourishment of knowledge and zikr of Allah Ta'ala. This is and the effect of that person is in a constant anxiety and in a state of depression because the heart is not achieving its need. Just like the stomach and the body, that it becomes comfortable, it becomes content when the stomach is full with food. And if the stomach does not achieve its food, then it becomes uncomfortable and anxious in a state of anxiety. Exactly this is the matter with the heart. So regarding the virtue of knowledge, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has emphasized the first thing Allah gives to the prophets is knowledge. And through that knowledge, they find the right path. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Allah says to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that Allah found you unfamiliar with the paths of Deen. Allah guided you through the knowledge of Deen in the form of Quran Sharif and Hadith Sharif. So the prophets are guided by the knowledge. If you look at the Quran Sharif, and Allah mentions any prophet and the blessings upon the prophet, the foremost is a blessing of knowledge. Adam alayhi salam, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Ibrahim alayhi salam, لَقَدْ آتَيْنَا إِبْرَاهِيمَ رُشْدَهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ. And the other prophets, Musa alayhi salam, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ شُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتَيْنَاهُ حُكْمًا وَعِلْمًا. So Allah Ta'ala blesses the prophets with many ni'mats and many bounties. But the first and foremost which Allah Ta'ala mentions among these ni'mats is the ni'mat of knowledge. Because knowledge is a path, it guides, and it's a guidance. Just like eyes in our face, through the eyes we can see our path, we can see our route. Exactly in the same way, with knowledge, we can see our path of guidance, hidayat, right and wrong, and false and the correctness. So that is the knowledge, and for us, the knowledge in form of Quran Sharif, Hadith Sharif, and the fiqh, masails of Deen. These three, they are the main means of knowledge of Deen. The more a person acquires the knowledge of Quran Sharif, Hadith Sharif, and masail, the more understanding he will have Deen, and according to that, inshallah, he will be practicing upon it and propagating that knowledge. That was the method of Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah says, Ya ayyuhal Rasul, Ya ayyuhal Rasul, Ya ayyuhal Rasul, balligh ma unsila ilayka min rabbik. O Rasul, O Messenger, O Prophet, convey that which has been revealed upon you, meaning Quran Sharif and Hadith Sharif. So same applies to, we have the same Quran Sharif which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. We have the same Hadith and Sunnah which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. So Rasulullah was guided with the very same Quran and Hadith. And Sahaba also, we also have the same means of Hidayat, Quran and Hadith and Fiqh. So we learn it properly, we practice upon it, and we propagate, then we will be the chain of the prophets and those people who Allah Ta'ala chose for His Deen. So concerning the value of knowledge, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned many hadiths concerning the value, importance, and the necessity of knowledge. दारमी ने हज़रत ओन से रिवायत की है कि हज़रत अब्दुल्ला बिन मसऊद रज़ी अल्लाह तआला ने फरमाया, दो हदीस ऐसे हैं कि उनका पेट नहीं भरता. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu says that Rasulullah sallallahu said that two greedy people who are never satisfied. So these two greedy people, that more they have, the more they want. It's a praise for one and it's a mazammat, criticism for the other. एक साहिब इल्म और दूसरा साहिब दुनिया. One is a student of knowledge and the other is the person eager for the world and wealth. So in the student, if he's a real student, more he acquires the knowledge, the more he becomes interested and he wants to progress more and more and more. Like we see somebody that gives him tawfiq and a good understanding, and Allah has collected his mind. He starts Quran Sharif from Nazara, Tajweed, then he learns to read Quran Sharif Nazara, then he wants to progress to become Hafiz, and then he wants to progress to understand the Quran Sharif and Hadith Sharif, what we call becoming Alim, and then he wants to progress, become Mufti, and so on. Meaning that there is no limit to where a person stops in acquiring knowledge. Even after becoming Alim, after his teaching, he wants to increase in knowledge and knowledge. And the other person who is eager for wealth, who is eager for dunya, so no matter how much he acquires the world, he never becomes satisfied, he never becomes content. He wants more and more of the world. As we can see, people who are engaged in the worldly business, that they're aging, but they don't become content. They want to increase and increase, progress and progress in their business and in their worldly affairs. This is why Magar dono barabar nahi. Both are greedy, but one's greediness is a matter of praise, a student of Deen. And other person's greed is matter of criticism, something disliked by Allah Ta'ala. Magar dono barabar nahi. वो जो साहिब इल्म है तो वो अल्लाह ताला की खुशनुदी में तरक्की करता रहता है. The student of knowledge of Deen, more knowledge he acquires, more he practices upon that knowledge, more he comes near to Allah Ta'ala. So this is the benefit of knowledge, knowledge which is a practical. That whatever knowledge he acquires, he practices upon him, he learns what are the sunnahs of eating, he eats according to that. That will bring him near to Allah Ta'ala. He learns the sunnah of going to toilet, he learns the sunnah of going to bed, sleeping. So this is knowledge, and he practices according to that. He's going to toilet, it's no ibadat, but he goes according to Sunnah, he comes near to Allah Ta'ala and he acquires pleasure of Allah Ta'ala even in such an act of going to toilet. When he goes according to Sunnah, he relieves himself according to Sunnah and he comes out according to Sunnah. So this is just a simple example that the person with the knowledge, whatever act he has to carry out, he carries it out according to Shariat, according to Sunnah. When a person does that, he comes near to Allah Ta'ala, he receives reward, sawab for it, and the pleasure of Allah Ta'ala. So it's not just somebody's alim, 24 hours he engaged in performing salat, he can't do that. There are many, many different duties and commitments a person has. But if he has a knowledge of that occasion, and he does that act according to Sunnah, according to Shariat, then he comes near to Allah Ta'ala. और जो साहिब दुनिया है सो शरारत में डूबता रहता है. The person who is eager for wealth, eager for world, he closes his eyes from halal and haram. He closes his eyes from jais and najais, but he wants wealth and wealth and wealth. In doing that, he goes away from Deen, he goes away from Allah Ta'ala. As we can see, those people who engage in the world, then their only concern is, how can I progress? How can I increase my wealth? And in doing that, usually most of the people, they don't have care for performing salat. They don't care regarding halal and haram. So that takes them away from Allah. They're increasing in the world wealth, but they're going away and away from Allah Ta'ala. उसके बाद अब्दुल्ला बिन मसूद रदी अल्लाह ने ये आयत पढ़ी, कल्ला इन्नल इंसान लयतगा अर्रआहु इस्तगना, कि इंसान शरारत करता है इसलिए कि अपने आप को बेनियाज और मालदार पाता है. That a mental state of a normal human being, that he becomes mischievous, he becomes arrogant because he sees himself, he does not need anyone, he has ample of wealth and he does not need anything, so he becomes arrogant and even he forgets Allah Ta'ala. Like Allah mentions the story of Qarun, وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ وَلَا تَبْغِ الْفَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ. He said, what I've achieved because of my knowledge, because of my understanding, because of my skill. So that was his answer, that he went so far away, na'udhu billah, he forgot Allah Ta'ala, he forgot the bounties of Allah Ta'ala upon him, and eventually, he was drowned into the ground. That was his end result with all his treasures. So, if a person, he indulges in the world, he forgets Allah Ta'ala, he forgets the Deen, he forgets halal and haram, jais and najais, he may increase in worldly wealth and progress in the world, but he goes away and away from Allah Ta'ala, that Allah Ta'ala's anger descends upon such a person. और दूसरे के मुतालिक इरशाद से, concerning the person with the wealth and who has drifted away from Deen, Allah Ta'ala mentions this ayat, innal insana la yatgha ar-ra'ahu istaghna, that the human being, he becomes arrogant because he deems himself not in need of Allah Ta'ala. A'udhu billah. And concerning a student of knowledge and an alim, a real alim who practices upon his knowledge, so concerning such a person, Allah Ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ, कि बस अल्लाह का खौफ तो उलमा ही करते हैं. That Allah mentions that the people who fear Allah Ta'ala are the ulamas, who know the might of Allah Ta'ala, who knows the power of Allah Ta'ala, who knows the qualities of Allah Ta'ala. So they are fearful of Allah Ta'ala, just like a king. The nearest person to a king is a minister. So the minister is the most scared person from the king. And a general person, general common person, he does not know, he just knows the name of the king. And beside that, he may say whatever he wants to say regarding the king at his home. But the minister, whether he's in front of the king or away from him, he has so much fear of the king that he would not dare to say any wrong word concerning the king, neither in presence of him or in absence of him. because he knows the power of the king, he knows the might of the king, he knows the qualities of the king. In the same way, person acquires the right knowledge if he read Quran Sharif with attention and with understanding, then we will realize the might and power of Allah Ta'ala. In the very first sentence of Quran Sharif, Rabbul Alameen, who is the Lord of whole universe. Worldly king, he may be king of one country, he may be king of two countries, and even then, how powerful he is thought to be. Allah Ta'ala says, Rabbul Alameen. He is the Lord, he is the creator, he is the owner of all the universe. So a king of one or two countries, we admire him. If you have to stand in front of him, we fear him. So we can compare. So that is the state of a worldly king. What is the state of the Allah Ta'ala, who is the king, who is the Lord of all the universe, all the makhluk. So if we read Quran Sharif, and this is the purpose of the madrasa, that from the very beginning we start Quran Sharif, second year we learn tarjama, then move on progress. So we become so much familiar with the Quran Sharif, the meanings of Quran Sharif, that we understand it, then inshallah ta'ala we will acquire the understanding of Quran Sharif and the effect of Quran Sharif upon us. At the moment we just read, just as a tarjama, or just to finish the para, and we don't ponder upon it, so the real effect of Quran Sharif does not come upon us, because we don't apply our mind towards the verses of Quran Sharif. Otherwise, the single verse of Quran Sharif, it changes a person's life. So regarding the ulama, Allah Ta'ala says that only the people, here ulama means who knows the might, power, qualities of Allah Ta'ala, so they fear Allah Ta'ala because they know what is the power of Allah Ta'ala, what Allah Ta'ala can do. So this is acquired by knowledge of Quran and Hadith, and understanding Quran Sharif, Hadith Sharif properly, this create this understanding. Look into Quran Sharif, Allah Ta'ala's qualities, Qul Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad, and if you just look in Quran Sharif, nearly every page in one way or the other, Allah Ta'ala mentions His power and His qualities, His attributes, His strength. So this affects a person and he understands them. मगर बहुत से मुसलमानों पर शैतान सवार हुआ और दुनिया ने उनको मगरूर बना दिया. The author says that the duty of a Muslim is to acquire knowledge of Deen in form of Quran, Hadith and Fiqh, and then practice upon it, then he would come under this category of these people, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاءِ. But even non-Muslims are non-Muslims, they are away from Allah Ta'ala, they are away from Deen, they don't know what is Deen, what is, they refuse the Creator, they don't believe in the Creator to that extent. But even among the Muslims who are born in a Muslim family, so rather than through Quran and Hadith coming near to Allah Ta'ala, they drift away, and the shaitan, he catches them in his trap, and they fall for the shaitan's trap. मगर बहुत से मुसलमानों पर शैतान सवार हुआ और दुनिया ने उनको मगरूर बना दिया. But even Muslims, upon many Muslims, the shaitan, he took hold of them and he misled them and he put them on the wrong path. बस ऐसे शख्स की आबरू रेजी के दर पे रहते और उसकी इहानत को हलाल समझते और उसको सताने पर तुले रहते हैं. So usually we see the person who is away from Deen, he has no connection with Deen and he has no knowledge of Deen, no practice of Deen. Usually these people have bad thoughts of ulama. They think they're burden on the earth of Allah Ta'ala. This type of thoughts shaitan puts in their mind, and he makes such a people against the ulamas, enemies of ulama, and trouble them. और उसकी दुश्मनी अपने दिलों में कायम कर लेते हैं. So there are such a people, even among Muslims, they have bad thoughts of ulama, Ulama means the real ulama, or practicing ulama, who guide the people towards good. So such a ulama that tell clearly and directly people, oh people in the community, this is a wrong act, this is wrong act, this is against the command of Allah Ta'ala, this is against the sunnah of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But usually people are so much accustomed to these customs and innovation and bidat. So when such a ulama, they say such a things openly on this mimbar in Jummah bayans, usually people do not like this because against their no, against their method, so they become their enemy, they try to stop them. और उसकी दुश्मनी अपने दिलों में कायम कर लेते हैं. You find outside many, at the moment you are young, you are in a madrasa, you have not had experience with people, but once a person, he goes outside, starts to propagate the deen, he becomes a imam of a masjid, or he becomes alim of the area, and he starts to say things openly, and people do not accept it, people do not like it, and they become his enemy, and they try to stop him, even trouble him. As with the prophets, we can see, before prophethood, Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was the most popular person in Makkah Sharif, he was the most beloved person in Makkah Sharif. But once he started to propagate, tell people, oh people, your way of life is wrong, your practices are wrong, your ways of ibadat are wrong, straight away the very people who loved him, they became enemies. They started to stop Rasulullah from propagating. لَوْ تُدْهِنُ فَيُدْهِنُونَ. If you will become quiet, he will become quiet also. So nevertheless, that if someone acquires a knowledge and then he practices himself and then goes further and he starts to tell people clearly the wrong in the community, then most of the people will not like it, they will go against him, they will try to stop him. अगर इससे एक बात भी ऐसी निकले जो मंशा के मुवाफिक ना हो और नहीं समझते कि ये शख्स वारिस है, so even one matter he says it is according to Deen, but it is according to their custom, according to their way of life, then people, they will try to stop him and they will try that this person does not go further in telling of people concerning wrong in the society. और ये नहीं समझते कि ये शख्स वारिस है रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का. So such a people, but they take it personally and they do not hear what this alim is saying. He's saying on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's a deputy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah used to say openly, "Oh people, this act is wrong, this practice is wrong, your associating partner with Allah Ta'ala is wrong. You're making sacrifice on the idols and statues, that is wrong," and many, many things. People, because of that, they became enemy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in the same way, some alim stands up and he tells people clearly the wrong in the society. Exactly the same happens with that alim. People, they become enemy of that person, they try to stop him, they try to trouble him. Yes, they do not understand and realize that this person is a deputy of Rasulullah sallallahu, he is an inheritor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the knowledge of Quran and Hadith. कि ये शख्स वारिस है रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का, कि रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम तड़के में न दीनार छोड़ा था न दिरहम. Rasulullah did not leave behind in his inheritance money, gold and silver. अलबत्ता सिर्फ इल्म छोड़ा जिसका ये वारिस हुआ. Rasulullah sallallahu left behind him the knowledge of Deen in form of Quran Sharif and Hadith Sharif. And any alim, any person who acquires the knowledge of Quran and Hadith, then he is a waris of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The more knowledge he acquires of Quran and Hadith, to that extent he is a waris of, he is the inheritor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we in the madrasa at the moment we are students, but we are acquiring the very same knowledge, Quran, Hadith and Fiqh. So depending on a person's ability, person's effort, the more knowledge he acquires, the more he is acquiring the inheritance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. और ये शख्स आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का नाइब है उम्मत की जानिब. So this alim who is practicing and is propagating the deen in a proper way, he is a deputy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, acting on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in propagating the deen. आपके अहकाम पहुँचाने में, और तुमको मालूम है कि नाइब की इहानत करना बिअैनिही मुनीब की इहानत करना है. So this alim, he is acting on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, propagating the deen. So when somebody disrespects that alim, somebody disgraces that alim, in fact he is disgracing na'udhu billah Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the alim not saying anything from his side, is conveying what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed. So when somebody abuses an alim because of that alim's knowledge propagating the deen, that it reaches up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as though he is abusing and is disgracing Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. और नाइब से अदावत रखना, उसको सताना बिअैनिही मुनीब से अदावत रखना और उसको सताना है. And if this alim who is doing what is on behalf of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to become enemy of such a alim and to trouble such a alim, in fact is troubling Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and making enmity with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. और अल्लाह ताला फरमाते हैं कि जो लोग सताते हैं अल्लाह उसके रसूल को, इन्नल्लज़ीना युज़ूना अल्लाह व रसूलहू, अल्लाह उन पर लानत फरमाते हैं दुनिया और आखिरत में. इस वर्स ऑफ कुरान शरीफ 22nd पारा, इन्नल्लज़ीना युज़ूना अल्लाह व रसूलहू लअनहुमुल्लाहु फिद दुनिया वल आखिरह. Those people who trouble Allah Ta'ala and His Rasulullah and His Prophet, that Allah Ta'ala's curse is upon such a people, on that person. दुनिया और आखिरत में, और उनके लिए मुहैया किया है अज़ाब ज़लील करने वाला. So for such a people is a lanat curse from Allah Ta'ala in this world and hereafter, and Allah has prepared for such a people as such a punishment which will disgrace them. So a person, he should never become enemy of an alim, he should never go against the alim, he should never disrespect the alim. Alim means who's doing for the sake of deen, and is propagating deen properly, Quran, Hadith, and he's guiding the people through Quran and Hadith. So one should never go against such an alim, never speak badly of that alim, and never become enemy of that alim, especially for students staying in madrasa, the ustad who teaches him Quran Sharif, who teaches him hifz and all. So that is even more. A student being a student, acquiring knowledge from the ustad who is an alim, who's teaching Quran Sharif, Hadith Sharif, and he has bad thoughts regarding the ustad, then it reaches to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ustad is imparting knowledge to him, benefit to him, and he's keeping a grudge in his heart. It will become a barrier between him. Usually such a student, they don't progress, and they have to leave the madrasa, and slowly they drift away from deen also. So this is the bad effect of having bad thoughts or becoming enemy of the ulamas. अगर कोई शख्स अपने पेशे के लिहाज से ज़लील भी हो, मगर जब इल्म हासिल करता है और दीन का फ़क़ीह बन जाता है, तो इल्म का जौहर उसकी ज़िल्लत के उसको गले से निकालकर इज़्ज़त की चोटी पर बिठा देता है. The author is saying that if somebody from worldly aspect, he has a very low job and he's a poor person, he has no respect, honor in the society, but he acquires ilm and he practices upon that ilm and he propagates that ilm, then that knowledge, that propagation of deen, it brings him out of the disgrace of his lowliness and it takes him to the peak of the respect and honor. We see many people that in the student days that they were unknown, but they kept to the task, they acquired knowledge properly, they learned Quran Sharif properly, and they acquired the knowledge of meaning of Quran Sharif, Hadith Sharif, and they started to teach, they started to propagate that through such a people are benefiting, they become famous, and people admire them, people respect them, and they invite them. Hazrat, come to our masjid, come to our city for making bayan. So although he's from a low family, but that knowledge, that practice of Deen has elevated him to such a position. You get the ulamas, that in the student days, they were not from high family, they were not from wealthy family, they were not from well-known family, but they acquired knowledge in a proper way. They practice according to that knowledge. Slowly and gradually, the effect of ilm started to come upon them, and they started to become well known amongst the people. And now we see the ulamas who are even from India, Pakistan, they're called, they're invited, come to our town, come for whole Ramzan Sharif, and they don't have time. They have to divide their time by 1 week here, 1 week there, 4 days here, 4 days there. Every community wants them for the whole Ramzan Sharif. So this is the barakat of knowledge, that because of the knowledge, they are invited, now they are respected and honored. And in the student days, they were unknown, nobody knew them. But they acquired knowledge in a proper way, and that knowledge, it made them well known. That was not their purpose, to become famous, to become well known. People invite them. No, the purpose to acquire knowledge, to have pleasure of Allah Ta'ala, and practice upon it. But with the barakat of that, Allah Ta'ala uses them for the propagation of Deen and tabligh of Deen. If you look around, the ulamas, whether they're local ulamas or the ulamas who come from abroad. So this is what we find in their life. They engage themselves in the student days eagerly, and keeping themselves by themselves and acquiring proper knowledge of Quran, Hadith, and practicing upon it. So this is what we find in the ulamas who become famous and who propagate the Deen. If you look at the back student days, this is something you'll find. Not that student days, they were just passing the time, wasting the time, doing wrong things. Usually such a people, they are not blessed tawfiq of practicing and propagating. So you usually find that people propagating the Deen who made what we can say mujahada, effort in their student days. So barakat of that will reach them after completing the study, in practicing and in propagating the Deen. हम ताला फरमाते हैं, क्या तुमने बनी इसराइल की जमात का हाल नहीं देखा, जबकि उन्होंने अपने नबी से कहा कि हमारे लिए एक बादशाह मुकर्रर कर दीजिए. So Quran Sharif, Allah mentions all type of stories, all type of nasihat for our understanding. Alam tara, Allah Ta'ala says, Alam tara ila alladhina kharaju min diyarihim ulufun hadar al-maut, and then Allah ib'ath lana malikan nuqatil fi sabilillah. When Israel, they were forced out of their homeland, so they said to the Prophet, fix a king for us, that under his kingship we will fight our enemy and reacquire our land. So the Prophet, he made dua to Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala fixed the person. When he was fixed, Inna Allah ba'atha lakum Taluta malika. Allah has made Talut a king over you, and he was an unknown person. That he was not known among them, he was not a famous person among Bani Israel. People did not know him, and he was of low family, so people complained, how come he can be on top of us, he can be our king? So people said to the Prophet, Shmuel alayhi salam, can fix a king for us that under his guidance we will fight against our enemy and take back our homeland. जबकि उन्होंने अपने नबी से कहा कि हमारे लिए एक बादशाह मुकर्रर कर दीजिए कि हम उसके तहत होकर अल्लाह के रास्ते में जिहाद करें. Israel, they made a request to the Prophet that ask Allah Ta'ala to fix a king for us, that under his guidance we will fight with our enemies and we will return back to our homeland, take our homeland back from our enemies who have overtaken it. नबी ने फरमाया ये भी मुमकिन है कि अगर तुम पर जिहाद करना फ़र्ज हो जाए तो क़िताल न करो. So the Prophet warned them that this should not happen, that Allah Ta'ala fixes a king and Allah commands you to make a jihad and you become a coward and you say no, we are not prepared to make jihad. So once Allah has fixed the king and command you to make jihad and then you don't do it, you're breaking the law, command of Allah Ta'ala, that will become serious matter for you. So before asking for a king, think it over. Will you be able to fulfill the rights of the king and commands of Allah Ta'ala or not? If not, leave it as it is and don't ask for king. वो कहने लगे कि इसकी वजह क्या है कि राह खुदा में क़िताल न करें. They said, what will stop us from fighting the path of Allah Ta'ala? Jihad is to fight on behalf of Allah Ta'ala, to protect the Deen of Allah Ta'ala and to elevate the Deen of Allah Ta'ala. So what will stop us from fighting in path of Allah Ta'ala? हालांकि हमको निकाला गया है हमारे घरों और बाल बच्चों से, and secondly we have been forced out of our homeland and we have been separated from our women, our wives and our children. So there is no stoppage in making jihad, and there is all matters which invites towards jihad. Al-Gharad, जब उन पर क़िताल फ़र्ज हुआ तो रुक फेर बैठे बजूज़ कलील जमात के. So when Allah Ta'ala fixed the king upon them and Allah Ta'ala commanded them to make jihad against the enemy, most of them turned away. Most of them became coward and they said, we will not be able to fight with the enemy. और अल्लाह ताला खूब जानते हैं जालिमों को. And Allah Ta'ala knows who are the wrongdoers. Allah Ta'ala will punish them accordingly. और उनसे कहा उनके नबी ने कि अल्लाह ताला ने मुकर्रर किया है तुम्हारे लिए तालूत को बादशाह. So first thing, fixing our king. So the Prophet Shimil alayhi salam said to his people, Inna Allah qad ba'atha lakum Taluta malika. Allah Ta'ala has fixed Talut as your king. Under his kingship, you will have to make jihad now. कहने लगे उनको हम पर हुकूमत का मनसब किस तरह हासिल हो सकता है हालांकि हुकूमत के उनसे ज़्यादा काबिल हम हैं. So he started to quarrel with the Prophet. He said, how come he becomes king over us? We are more appropriate than him to become king. And he's just a normal person. He's not from a king family. He's not from a royal family. How come such a person becomes king over us? हालांकि हुकूमत के उनसे ज़्यादा काबिल हम हैं. We are more capable of running the government than him. हाँ, उनको तो माली वुसअत भी मुतलक नहीं दी गई. And he is not a wealthy person. So without wealth, how can he manage the country? And without power over people, how will he be able to command the people? नबी ने कहा कि अल्लाह ताला ने उनको तुम पर बलतड़ी दी और इल्म व जिस्म के अंदर वुसअत में उनको ज़ायद किया. So the Prophet said to him that firstly Allah Ta'ala chosen him, so that is enough. Who Allah Ta'ala makes a king, because you don't argue with that, you don't go against that. What Allah Ta'ala fixes, you accept it. And secondly, he has more knowledge of running a country, he has more knowledge of jihad, and he is more powerful in his body than the rest of you. So because of that he has been chosen. The point here that he was an unknown person, he was from a low family, but Allah Ta'ala made such a person king over whole of Bani Israel because one, he was strong in his body, and secondly, he had knowledge of jihad, he had knowledge of fighting with the enemy. So here again, Allah Ta'ala did not look at his family status, Allah Ta'ala looked at his quality of being a strong person and a knowledgeable person. So because of his knowledge, He was chosen from nowhere to become a king and rule over Bani Israel. So the point here, that ilm raises a person to high levels. As we can see, the ulamas who come and who are local ulamas, so that's not because of their family status, because of their knowledge, because of their effort of deen. और अल्लाह अपना मुल्क जिसको चाहे दे, and everything belongs to Allah Ta'ala. Allah Ta'ala may give His kingdom to whomever He wishes. One does not have a chance to argue with Allah Ta'ala, why Him, why not us. और अल्लाह ताला वुसअत वाले और इन वाले हैं. And regarding his being lack of wealth, so Allah, there is no shortage of wealth in Allah Ta'ala's treasure. So Allah Ta'ala make him wealthy and provide him with all the needs of the running the country. And Allah Ta'ala knows everything, who is capable of what. और उनसे कहा उनके नबी ने कि उनके बादशाह होने की निशानी ये है कि तुम्हारे पास वो संदूक आएगा जिसमें सकीनत है तुम्हारे रब की तरफ से. So to make them mutmain and to make them content and satisfied, the Prophet said to them that a sign that is been chosen by Allah Ta'ala, that the sandook, the box which the enemy had took from them when they took all the wealth of Bani Israel. So amongst them there was a sandook, there was a box in which there were the belongings of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, Hazrat Harun alayhi salam. So the Prophet said that the sign that he is chosen by Allah Ta'ala, without even fighting them, that box will come back to you. So that is a sign that he's been chosen by Allah Ta'ala. और बचा हुआ तलका कि आले मूसा आले हारून का उसको फरिश्ते उठाए होंगे. So the sign is chosen by Allah Ta'ala, the box in which the belongings of Musa alayhi salam, Hazrat Harun alayhi salam is kept. The whole box will be brought to you, to the angels. They will carry it to you without even you starting the fight with them. So that is a sign that he has been chosen by Allah Ta'ala to become a king over you. So accept him. बेशक उसमें बड़ी निशानी है तुम्हारे लिए अगर तुम ईमान वाले हो. So in this, that the box coming to you is like a diamond Kohinoor, which actually belongs to India. But these people, when they were ruling there, they took it. It was a very, very valuable jewel. So, and they're trying to take it back, but these people are giving it back. So, for example, something happens, and that diamond goes back to India by itself. That is a very great sign. So exactly same is here, that they were at that time they were not capable of fighting and taking that box back from them. But it comes without doing them anything. That's a very great sign from Allah Ta'ala. हाँ, इसमें बड़ी निशानी है तुम्हारे लिए अगर तुम ईमान वाले हो. That is a very big sign that this person is not made, has not become king by himself, or I have not made him, he has been made king by Allah Ta'ala, and this is a sign, so accept him. So now is the point the author is trying to make, that he was an unknown person. He was not known amongst even the Bani Israel. He was in a way a wealthy, poor person, but Allah Ta'ala chose him because of his knowledge. He had knowledge of governing the country, keeping people under control, and waging jihad against the enemy. So because of his knowledge and strength of the body, he was chosen by Allah Ta'ala. Not because of his popularity, because of being famous amongst people. He was not chosen for that. बस तालूत उन पर बादशाह हो गए, हालांकि वो दबागत का पेशा किया करते थे. So he was made the king of Bani Israel, and in fact, what job he used to do? He used to clean. He was a tanner who tans the leather. So that is not a very big job, and that is not very popular job. So that is what he used to do. He used to clean the skins of animal and then sell it. But because of the knowledge he had, he was made the king. Because of that, he was elevated to such a high position. और वो मुकाबले में आए जालूत और उसके लश्कर के. So eventually, when Israel accepted him as the king, and he started to arrange the people, and he made the army, and he started to prepare to wage a war against Jalut, who was the enemy. और उसके लश्कर को उनको शिकस्त दी अल्लाह के हुक्म से. So they had the last, فَهَزَمُوهُمْ بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. They defeated Jalut and his army with the help of Allah Ta'ala, with the command of Allah Ta'ala. And they became victorious, and they took back their homeland from the enemy who were non-Muslims. और वो लोग न समझे कि नस्ब की वजह से आदमी लोगों में अफजल बना करता है. So one is a wealth, that sometimes person becomes famous because of his wealth. Sometimes person becomes famous because of his lineage, family lineage, from a high family. But against the knowledge, the high family life is also lineage, is not comparable to a knowledge. और वो लोग न समझें कि नस्ब की वजह से आदमी लोगों में अफजल बना करता है. Someone should not think because of from being a high family, he becomes a big person, he becomes famous, he becomes accepted. So that is also not a reason for person being counted to be a big person. जब तक दीन में फ़क़ीह न बने, as long as he does not have knowledge of deen, as long as he is not practicing person, then just being from a high family will not help him in becoming a big person, popular person. इमाम मुस्लिम ने अबू हुरैरा रज़ी अल्लाह से रिवायत की है कि रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने फरमाया, आदमियों की असलियत ऐसी है जैसे सोने और चांदी की कान होती है कि जो कुफ्र की हालत में बेहतर होते हैं वही इस्लाम में आकर बेहतर होते हैं जब कि फ़क़ीह बन जाए. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allah Ta'ala creates a person with some natural qualities. So those natural qualities, they stay with the person, whether it's a Muslim or a non-Muslim. For example, being generous, being polite, being just, and being merciful amongst people. So these are natural qualities, whether he's a Muslim or a non-Muslim. So these, just like in the world, there are mines, a different type of mines, coal mine and gold mine, silver mine. So according to what is kept in that mine, that value, the mine becomes valuable according to that. In the same way, we human being, in some people Allah Ta'ala gives good qualities. So more good quality Allah gives in that person, by nature, he has that good quality. But now, to use that quality, he needs a knowledge. So those people who were good families before Islam, in Kufr, then they are the good families in Islam also, provided they acquire knowledge of Deen. Because through knowledge of Deen, they will know how to use that good quality, bravery, courage, generosity, etc. So these are natural qualities. But how to use them, the Sharia teaches. He acquires knowledge, and he uses that knowledge to use his qualities, then those qualities will be well used. और यही वजह है कि गुज़िश्ता बादशाह खुलफा में जिनको इल्म का ज़ौक़ था वो हमेशा उलमा को अपना मुकर्रब बनाते और उनसे मोहब्बत रखते थे. And because of that, those kings who had love for the knowledge, who had value of the knowledge, so they respected the ulamas of their time, they kept them near to them, and they asked the masails from them, they made mashwara with them, and they ruled their government according to the guidance of the ulama. So the running of the government was according to Deen also. इमाम राज़ी रहमतुल्लाह अलैह ने अपनी तफसीर में बयान किया है कि मरवी है कि हज़रत उमर रदी अल्लाह ताला अन्हु ताज़ीम किया करते थे हज़रत अब्दुल्ला बिन अब्बास रदी अल्लाह ताला अन्हु की, और उनको करीब बिठाते थे और अहले बदर के साथ उनको इजाज़त दिया करते थे. It's a very famous story. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala was the Khalifa, so he used to keep Hazrat Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu near, and he was a very young person. When Rasulullah passed away, he was only about 13 years of age, and after that he became a little older, but he was so young, 16, 17, 18 years of age, or 20 years of age. So Umar radiallahu ta'ala used to make him sit in his council and used to ask him mashwara. And in his council there would be people who were in the battle of Badr, meaning the elderly Sahabas, and he was a very, very young, a youth. But Umar radiallahu ta'ala used to keep him in his council and ask him masail and ask him mashwara. So, बस अब्दुल रहमान बिन औफ रदियल्लाहु ताला ने आपसे अर्ज़ किया कि आप इस नौ उमर को हमारे साथ इजाज़त देते हैं, हालांकि हमारी औलाद में उन जैसे मौजूद हैं. अब्दुल रहमान बिन औफ रदियल्लाहु ताला was amongst the great Sahaba and elderly Sahaba. Once he said to Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala that you give place to this youth in your majlis and in your council. In fact, we have sons who are of the same age as him, and you don't allow them to come into your majlis and council, and you allow this young person, Abdullah bin Abbas, to be in your council. Why are you doing this? Hazrat Umar radiallahu फरमाया, उसकी वजह ये है कि ये उन लोगों में से है जो तुमको भी मालूम है, यानी अहले इल्म व फजल. So Umar radiallahu replied that he is among the person whom you know, meaning he is a knowledgeable person and who has understanding of Deen. He is young, very young in age, but his knowledge is very vast and very deep. So because of his knowledge, I make him sit in my council when making mashwara and when asking people for their mashwara. हज़रत उमर रदी अल्लाह ने फरमाया, इब्न अब्बास रदी अल्लाह कहते हैं कि आखिर एक दिन हज़रत उमर रदी अल्लाह इन हज़रात को भी आने की इजाज़त दे दी और मुझको भी उनके साथ इजाज़त दी. So to prove this point that although he is very young in age but his knowledge is very vast and very deep, one day Hazrat Umar radi Allah, he gathered all these people in his council, in his majlis, and he called Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he took their test. All of the elderly Sahaba and the youth, Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he asked him some questions to test their knowledge. बस अल्लाह ताला का कौल इदा जा नसरुल्लाहि वल फथ, Surah Nasr. So he recited this surah के मुतालिक इन हज़रात से सवाल किया, और ये सवाल सिर्फ मेरी वजह से किया था. So Hazrat Umar radiallahu recited this surah Ida Ja'a Nasrullah al-Fath, and he asked the elderly people, tell me what is the meaning of this surah. So Abbas says, I realize that he is taking this test because of me, to prove that I'm although very young in age, but my knowledge is correct and my knowledge is deep. So because of that, he also allows me to sit in his council, in his majlis. सिर्फ कि मेरी इल्मियत उनको मालूम हो जाए. बस किसी ने कहा कि आयत का कि सूरत का मकसद ये है कि जब नबी पर फतूहात हुए तो अल्लाह ने अपने नबी को हुक्म दिया कि तौबा इस्तिगफार करें. So someone, Hazrat Umar, tell me what's the meaning of this surah? What's the purpose of this surah? So somebody said, Allah has commanded Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that when you are blessed with victory over your enemy, then praise me and make my zikr. Somebody gave this answer. मैंने कहा कि ये बात नहीं है. So Umar asked him, is this the meaning of this surah? Is this the purpose of this surah? Abdullah bin Abbas, he was very young, he said, no, this is not the purpose of this surah. So Hazrat Umar kept asking one by one. Somebody said, we don't know. Somebody said, this is the meaning. Somebody said, this is the meaning. And he would ask Abdullah bin Abbas, is this the meaning? Is this what he's saying is correct? And he would reject it. He said, no, this is not the meaning of this surah. In the end, Hazrat Umar radiallahu said to Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu, what's the purpose of this surah? Why was it revealed? Hazrat ko Hazrat ki wafat ki itila di gayi hai. Eventually Hazrat Umar said, what's the purpose of this surah? So Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiallahu said that Rasulullah is informed of his death, that your death is near. So in clear words, there is no mention of death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But this is what he derived. This is what he understood from this surah, that Allah is informing him, your mission is completed. So now you start to prepare for the hereafter by making zikr of Allah Ta'ala in abundance, istighfar and tasbih. So that is the purpose of this surah, to inform Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that his time to stay in the world is coming to the end, and your time to come to Allah Ta'ala is coming nearer. This is the purpose of this surah. And there is no single word saying this type of thing in the surah, but this is what he derived, and this is what he understood from the surah. चूँकि जिस काम के लिए दुनिया में आप आए थे वो पूरा हो गया, आँखों से देख लिया, लिहाजा सफ़र आखिरत के लिए तैयार हो जाएं. So the meaning of this surah, which is not in words, that for the purpose you were sent to the world has been accomplished, meaning the whole of Arabia entering into Islam and coming on to Hidayat, that purpose has been achieved. You have fulfilled your mission, so now start to prepare for the hereafter by engaging in ibadat even more and more. Hazrat Umar radiallahu, so he was barely a youth of say 18, 20 years, which is the age of all students are, and in front of the whole council, imagine in the cabinet of Prime Minister, a youth of 18 or 19, he stands up and he gives his view and opinion, and is accepted by the Prime Minister or the King. How great an honor for that youth. So exactly same happened here. And Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu affirmed what he said. Hazrat Umar radiallahu anhu फरमाया कि मैं भी यही समझता हूँ जो तुम समझते हो. So Umar radiallahu said, I also understand from this surah what you understood, meaning Allah is informing you that you have completed your mission and people of Arabia have entered into Islam. Now your task has been completed. You start to prepare for the journey of the hereafter by engaging yourself more and more in ibadat of Allah Ta'ala. उसके बाद अहले बदर से फरमाया, तुम देखते हो, फिर उसके बाद उनके मुतालिक मुझ पर एहताज क्यों करते हो? Then Umar said, you can see, I asked you the same question, you could not answer me. And this young boy, he answered correctly. So because of that, or because of his knowledge, because of his deep understanding of Deen, I allow him to sit in my council and make mashwara from him. So the point the author is making, that whether a person is a small family or is of small age, but he has proper knowledge, then that elevates him and that makes him even above people of higher age or people with more wealth and more fame. That knowledge exceeds all these things. So Allah has given us a chance. In a madrasa, we have come to acquire the same knowledge, Quran and Hadith. We should value this chance and apply ourselves in acquiring the best way. Today we don't think. Those ulamas who are doing khidmat, when they were students, they were unknown. But now look how famous they are, how much they are admired, how much they are respected because of their knowledge and because of the khidmat of Deen. So inshallah ta'ala, we also acquire proper knowledge, right knowledge, we practice and we propagate. Inshallah, Allah will take work from us, Allah will take khidmat from us, and it will become means of propagating Deen and become a proper deputy of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah give us tawfiq to value this chance and acquire the knowledge in best possible way and give us to practice. The first time when we learn something new, we start to practice, and that person is given tawfiq to practice upon it. And if he neglects it, he becomes, and he just overlooks it, then that chance goes, and then it is very different there that he will be given chance to act upon it again.
Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallah wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.